Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Fanning. I am here to kind of answer, I hope, a question in a way that helps you understand, in a way that I understand it. I would like to preface this with I am just a student of philosophy. I am by no means a professor, a professional in any sort of the term, but I do feel like I'm only sharing the concepts that I feel like I understand, and that I have talked with a professor of philosophy about and been given, an A. You know what I mean? So, therefore, I'm going to try to answer, some of these questions that I had that I felt were really challenging for educational purposes. By no means am I getting paid to do this. It's purely a passion project because I sorely sought out videos to help me learn this stuff, and I really had to do a lot of my own digging, own thinking, which I encourage you guys to do, but I don't think guiding hands hurt whatsoever. I do say that if you're going to cite my video, please just make sure it is properly cited in whatever format you need to use. Citing is incredibly important, and as I go along, I will also be citing and putting in my summary places that I paraphrased. I don't believe I took direct quotes here. So, I might just say like per Markie and Folescu or whatever. I might be butchering their names, but I will be having their references below on where I did get my information from. So, to get into it, first, to answer this question, we need to know what Locke's arguments are here. I'm sure you've read this while I've been chattering away. But ultimately, the question is, do you think Locke's arguments are damaging to Descartes in his conviction that he has at least one idea, that he is thinking, and that he exists, otherwise known as cogito ergo sum? So, the first thing we need to do is know Locke's arguments against innate ideas. And I believe that there are two major reasons that he does not believe in innate ideas, or he doesn't believe that they exist. One is the problem that he finds is that if there were innate ideas, they would be universal, and we know they are not. So, innate ideas should be, or I should rather say would be, universal. There's no equal sign with a slash through it, so I'm just going to put but they are not. Second one, I would say, are, and I'm referencing my own writings here, so, I'm not really plagiarizing anything or anything like that. It's literally my own writings here. Second, Locke believes that while we are not born with innate ideas, we are given tools like our minds and our senses to be able to ascertain how the world around us works, and by combining these with combining these two things, we get experiences which give us knowledge of concepts. And that is a bit of a paraphrase of Markie and Folescu 2021 that I did use, that I will link below so you can do that reading as well. Again, not directly quoted, but it is where I got my knowledge base from, so I'm not just talking out of my buns here. So the second would be we have tools, okay? We have tools, so not innate. And those tools are our mind, right? We can reason things out, and our senses. So we can see things. We can hear things. I think a perfect example of this that I like to use is that if we were, it's our. I'm not gonna get too far off base, so I'm not gonna get into that yet. If that comes up, I'll bring it up. But, anyways, perfect analogy here, okay? And this is a common one you're gonna find when talking about this stuff, and that is because Descartes believes in the innate truth of mathematics. So often we'll use mathematics to figure this, to kind of counteract this. So, for example, Descartes believes in the truth of mathematics. 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? Well, we know 2 plus 3 equals 5. We know it because it is innate truth of mathematics. No matter if you're on this side of the universe, if you're in the Andromeda galaxy, wherever you are in the universe, math doesn't change. 2 plus 3 is 5 no matter where you go. So Descartes believes that is an innate idea, not the one we're discussing now, but an innate idea nonetheless. Excuse me. Yet Locke argues, and this is a great argument, well, children don't know what 2 plus 3 is. If you go to a, if you go to a child, whatever, they're not going to know what 2 plus 3 equals. When you were 3, you didn't know what 2 plus 3 equals. Somebody had to teach you addition, therefore that is not innate to Locke, right? So that is his major argument on that. Because if you ask like a child or somebody who has never been taught math, to be frank, you could go to some tribe somewhere, right, that's never had human contact. Maybe they figured math out. That's not to say they haven't, but assume they haven't, and ask them what 2 plus 3 is, and they'll be like, what the, H are you talking about? So they won't know how to figure it out. Like a child or anybody who doesn't know, they won't know how to figure out what 2 plus 3 is, and furthermore, they don't know to say 5, so it's not innate. And excuse me if I'm giving an over-explanation too. This is meant to be kind of all-encompassing, because, Anyways, so to Locke, because of that reason, it's not innate or universal. Because if it was innate, the child would be able to give the sum of the numbers 2 plus 3. And that's where the second major idea comes in. We have the tools to figure it out. We have our mind and our senses, right? While the child does not have the answer, they can, ascertain how to get that answer. They can use the ability to learn the process of addition to ascertain the answer, right? So that's using their mind. They can figure out the process of addition. Like, that is how we learn math, right? That's how we learn how to add and subtract. We use our minds to reason out the answer. And in this, Locke believes, is his answer to Descartes, that we learn through experience. And if that is the case, why do we need to postulate that there is this extra thing, quote unquote, that we call an innate idea? So basically, what Locke is saying is, if I can tell you, imagine I'm Descartes, or imagine I'm Locke talking to Descartes, right? If I can tell you 2 plus 3 equals 5, and I can tell you we learn this through the process of additions, not through some innate concept, right? But because we were taught it, right? We have a teacher in front of us. The teacher talked to us. We used our sense of hearing and then used our minds. So we're combining those to learn the process of addition. And then we can write out what 2 plus 3 equals 5 is. Like, you've went to school, you know how to learn 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? We've all lived it. So, what Locke is saying to Descartes is, why does there need to be this extra thing? Why do we need to say it's an innate idea? What Locke is saying is cut the bull out of it, get it out of there. It's useless, and it's not needed. That's what Locke believes. Okay? As I understand it, of course. So basically what I kind of said was, Locke believes his answer lies in experience. And therefore, we do not need to add this extra thing. I don't know what's the best way to call it, but you get what I'm saying. That is innate ideas. There's just, to Locke, no reason to do that, right? And also, another great example of this, and I think another great analogy, in a way that doesn't involve math, because I'm not mathy. So, to any of you out there who are not mathy, this is a great way to see it as well. So, Locke also believes, separately, but this is another great way to explain his initial main idea, and that is the innate ideas would be universal, but they're not. And that's the analogy of, say, human sacrifice, right? So, for some cultures, they believe sacrifice is good. At the very least, they think it's necessary, but, I think if you live in America, obviously, we're going to say that is absolutely abhorrent. We could never imagine doing that for any reason, no matter what the cost was. And that is what Locke, an example of Locke's initial main idea, is that, if innate ideas, like innate moral ideas, were innate truly, we would all be able to say, that is abhorrent, or that's okay. But the fact that there's disagreement means that it's not an innate idea, right? So overall, Locke's argument to innate ideas is that we start as a blank slate with no innate ideas. And the things we experience and or were taught shape our knowledge of the world and our place in it. So a lot of the times you're going to hear people reference Locke as, I think he uses some word like tabulosa or something like that, but it's really just, he believes we're a blank slate. When a piece of paper comes out of a printer and there's no ink on it, he just thinks we're that. But what he thinks is when we go through the printer, that ink that's put upon us is our experiences in the world. And we come out the other side with experiences which then turn into knowledge of the world, right? Okay. So now that we understand Locke's arguments, assuming you already know Descartes' arguments, of course, that he is thinking that he exists. When he pulls away all the other things in the world, he can ration out with his mind that one, right? So this is where I want to say to you that a lot of people just will assume, oh, heck yeah, this is damaging. Heck yeah, this totally gets rid of everything Descartes said, all that mumbo jumbo we learned, it's gone. No, actually, no, it's not. No, it's not, and for a very good reason as to it's not. And this comes back to the first thing I told you at the very beginning. How do you define innate? How do you define innate? And that's the question that will lead you to either side of this, okay? Because you can see innate as Locke sees it, right? That means innate in the sense that it should just come to you. But there's different definitions of innate, and we know those to be true. But it's easy because what I feel like Locke almost does is kind of bully it. Like I think he almost purposely ignores what innate means in the way Descartes describes it, and the way I feel like Descartes describes it is not necessarily that we're born with it, but that we could reason to its conclusion without senses of any kind using our minds alone. Okay? So I think that is where it gets a little bit confusing. And that's why I can personally see both sides. And that's my stance I took, as I see both sides, frankly. I do. Because it just depends on the definition of innate you use, right? So, and I'm just going to read my bit here I have of my own words to help you understand it, right? In a way that is very academically professional, in my own words. Okay. So, frankly, I see both, and I also say, remember, you can cite, you can paraphrase, but I have turned this work in, so please do not plagiarize. It's a big thing. You're more than welcome to cite, paraphrase, what have you. But I do stress that because what I have seen at my college a lot is people just straight up plagiarize. I can't imagine that's going to go well for you. But anyways, frankly, I see both sides of the argument, like I've told you. And that's because they're both arguing how we ascertain the nature of things. For Locke, he believes in experience, and through our experiences we can build concepts, whereas Descartes believes our senses can be deceiving, and we should rely on our minds alone to ascertain concepts, not our senses. And that goes back to Descartes believing we're deceived by a demon. Yes, hold that thought right there. How is he, how is that make any sense if we're looking at, that's a whole nother basket of eggs, but that's why he believes not to trust your senses. Which I felt like was a far stronger argument Locke argument, like a far stronger thing Locke could have argued against in his stuff, but that is not what he chose. Anyways, so Locke believes in experience. Descartes believes relying on our minds, not our senses. Okay? And this is also where I could argue both sides, because it, like I said, it depends on how one interprets the meaning of innate. If one argues that innate in the traditional sense means we're born with it, then yeah, Descartes' argument seems pretty weak, huh? Based on Locke's counter-argument, or his arguments against innate ideas that we've been talking about. However, if one interprets innate as I see it, then innate means we could reason to this conclusion without senses of any kind, using our minds alone. Then I believe Descartes' cogito ergo sum, or that he's thinking that he exists, remains relatively untouched by Locke's argument. This is because Descartes is looking for a foundation, something irrefutable and untouched from the outside, and I believe he found it, and I think therefore I am. Someone who has no senses of any kind could reach this conclusion using only their mind, and that is what I believe Descartes refers to as an innate idea. Overall, I can see both sides of the argument, as it is up to one's interpretation. However, given my interpretation of innateness, I do lean more towards the side of Descartes' original point remaining valid against Locke's argument, and that's ultimately where I leave it. But absolutely, I think you can argue it either way. But I do personally believe that Locke almost blindly ignored he almost took the easier of the two arguments, right? Because it's all in how you define innate. At least that's kind of what I feel like I reasoned out. And I feel like, obviously we wouldn't hold Descartes to any sort of positioning, I feel like philosophically, if his stuff was just absolute baloney, right? But at the same time, and this is where I'm rambling a little bit, but I feel like I've probably answered your main questions, but to get maybe a better understanding of where I sit, is that innate in this sense, to me, what I believe Descartes believes, because if you do follow his journey through the meditations, it's really him just stripping away everything, trying to doubt everything, which, again, side tangent, the whole demon and believing in God doesn't really strip away everything he knows, which is a whole thing that I feel like people could have attacked, and I feel like do eventually, especially in the modern day. Going back to that, though, he's stripping away all doubts, everything that he held true, dear Deb, and that's where I'm saying he found a foundation. And really, if you think about it, right, say you were born blind, deaf, and could never communicate with another human being, but inside your mind you can talk to yourself. And I ask you this question then, and I think maybe this is how you answer this question for yourself, is do you think that you could do what Descartes did? That if you were born, well, I mean, he wasn't born blind and deaf, but just say you put yourself in his shoes of what he was trying to do, right? Reason, get away everything that he knew to see what he could just reason out based on his mind alone, not using any senses. Okay, so that is what I would ask you to do to answer this question. Do you think that if you do what Descartes does in his meditation, strip away everything, or that if you were born blind, deaf, and could not communicate with anybody, etc., do you think you could come to the conclusion that you are thinking and that you exist? And if you think you can come to that conclusion because you'll still have your mind, even if you can't communicate and you can't see or you can't hear, you can't have any senses, do you think you could reason that out? Do you think you could think to yourself, I am a thinking creature, or I am thinking and I exist? If you think you could come to that, one innate idea, then you believe in Descartes. If you think that even if all that was, even if you think you had all your senses away, you think that, you couldn't communicate with people, if you don't think you could come up with that one idea, then you've answered your question. You'd probably side with Locke, okay? There is no right or wrong answer to this. In my belief, it's absolutely your interpretation. And if you can create a strong argument for either side, you have absolutely, in my opinion, answered this question. If you can provide evidence, right? Because there's a reason these questions are being answered, and it's because they are questions that make you think, and they make you think in very philosophical ways, right? My one piece of advice for philosophy is do not take any question at face value, at least not initially, okay? Absolutely try to think outside the box, and that's what I had to do here with the one innate idea. And ultimately, my personal opinion is that I do think that in our minds, even if we had no senses, no communication, we might go crazy. But I think at the initial, because we are social animals, of course, right? But I think at the end of the day, I think before I went crazy, I would think to myself that I'm thinking. Because I would certainly wonder what the heck is happening in my mind. I'd be wondering, what am I? It's just, to me, innate natural human curiosity, right? If we were blind and deaf and couldn't feel anything, couldn't taste, couldn't touch, couldn't smell, but we still had our minds, I still think our minds would be curious, okay? And I think that is why I personally believe in Descartes' conviction. I don't believe in everything that Descartes says, but I do think that he has one innate idea on his hands, and I think cogito, ergo sum. Pardon me, I butchered that in French, probably did, but I do think that is there because I don't think Locke's arguments, and again, it's purely my interpretation. I think he's, again, I'm not going to say anything more, but I will say when you come down to it, 50-50, either one could be right, to me, completely relies on your definition of innate. Innate in the traditional sense, I'm going to say Locke. Innate in the sense that we could ration it out of our own minds, even if we had no senses, I'm going to go Descartes. And like I said, it's really your personal belief. And just to overall sum it up, I would just ask yourself that question, and whichever side you fall on is the side you should take. And that's because that's the side you're going to be able to evidence and that you feel most strongly with. So for me, it's Locke's innate. Oh, what the hell was that? Pardon my French. Locke's innate is the traditional innate. I call it the traditional innate, in which we are born with it. Because, we're born with the, innately and born with the ability to speak a language, right? Once we're taught, okay, through experience. That's what Locke is saying innate is, and that's why he doesn't believe Descartes' innate ideas, right? But Descartes believes that innate, in the sense he uses it, to me, from my understanding, is not so much that we're born with it, but that we could reason it out using our minds alone. Not our senses, right? And that's as I see it, the two differences. And I think that's the hardest part to understand. And I think that's why Descartes is incredibly hard to understand in a lot of his stuff, because when he's taking away, and this is where it's important too to realize that he's taking away a lot of the foundations, right? So even and when you go further with Descartes' readings, you're like his use of objective, right? And I think Meditations 3 or something, completely not the way we use it today. I don't feel like innate's the way we use it today either, and not in a way that we can't use it today, but just kind of a little twist on it. So again, I leave you with the idea of which innate do you believe would be able to, is more rational to you, I guess, maybe I'd say. So that's the idea I would leave you with. And that's also how you would answer this question. Do you think it is damaging? So do you think Locke's innate is damaging, or do you think Descartes' innate stands up against Locke's arguments? And those are two cases you can make for. I think, if you, again, listen to my Locke's arguments, I just personally don't feel like he tackles that question exactly. Because, again, he doesn't believe in this extra thing that's called innate ideas, but at the end of the day, there is just things that we can't explain that we learned, right? And to me, too, it's, like Locke says that we learned everything through experience. Well, there had to have been somebody who invented it, right? Smartphones aren't innate. Somebody, and even like making them was not innate, right? We know how to make them through experience, but there was somebody who had to do it first, right? And where did that come from is my question. And I feel like that's what Descartes is saying. He's using his mind, okay? Not in that same sense. Obviously, Descartes did not have a smartphone, but I think, stained glass, somebody had to make it. We didn't get everything from experience. I mean, and that's kind of where you could argue, well, we knew how to make glass, we knew how to make colors, we put them together. Was that not a culmination of our experiences? And that's where you could totally maybe counter my argument, right? But again, I lean toward Descartes. I try not to make this bias, but when you're making an argument, it's easiest to present what you know. I hope I did both sides justice, and I hope that, I helped you kind of think on this question and maybe learn about it in a way you didn't. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Certainly, if you want me to try to tackle something, I will give it my best shot. I can't guarantee anything, but I just really hope you learned something. And I hope philosophy is enjoyable to you, because I found philosophy to be very demoralizing, because I didn't have guidance. But when I have guidance, you can see I'm very passionate about it. I love to talk about it. And I hope I imparted some of that onto you today. Again, I'm just going to give a brief overview just because I know I get a little wordy. So in case you skipped to the end and just wanted to basically hear it. I mean, obviously, some of it's on the screen, but quick recap, on Locke's arguments would be a couple main reasons. And I'm not saying these are all encompassing, okay? This is just what I know. This is just what I know, okay? So there could be other reasons. There could be more. I sincerely ask that you do your own research on this as well. I am but a student. I am not a master. So, one would be that Locke believes that innate ideas, if they were truly real, would be universal, but they are not. We have provided examples to this through the video. Second, even though he does not believe that ideas are innate, he believes that we have tools. Our mind and our senses. Our mind to reason out what our senses perceive, and therefore combine those two things into what do I call it? I call it experiences, and those experiences give us knowledge. So he thinks no innate ideas, experiences. Blank tabs, we're blank tablets. We get experience. We get our sensory stuff. We're taught things. And therefore, our mind processes our senses, gives us experiences. That experience accumulates to knowledge, right? A great way to explain this is child is a blank slate. They hear their teacher or their parent teaching them colors or math. They hear that. That's a sense. They might see the colors, right? That's a sense. So they perceive it in their mind. Their mind starts rationing it out, rationalizing it, and through those two things, they get the experience of what red is, what colors, then they put all those together and they get the knowledge of colors, right? So that's a very simple way to explain that as I understand it. So that's what, and then to overview, Locke believes his answer to Descartes lies in experience, not this, extra thing that he's like, there's no reason to add innate ideas, because he's like, my answer explains it, right? And that's where we get to the actual argument, and which side you want to take is completely up to you. You could go either way, and like I said, to me, it just depends on how you want to define innate. In the traditional sense, we're going to go with Locke, in Descartes', I guess, sense. I don't really know what you call that. Maybe like Descartes' kind of a league of his own, so we'll call it Descartes' innate. And that's, we can reason it out using our mind alone, not using our senses. As we've talked through this video, I'm just giving a quick recap. We've talked through all these things, so I'm not going to go into them, although I could, again, but I don't want to repeat myself. So, again, that's just a quick overview. I hope these things helped you. I really wanted to give an in-depth kind of look at this, because I don't feel like there's much out there, and I really want you to be passionate about philosophy. I don't want you to become demoralized or hate it. And I sincerely hope that I taught you something. Remember to cite properly, and if needed, and no matter what you use, I'm not just saying me, I'm not trying to get a bunch of credit here at all, but I'm just saying, like, it's such a big problem I saw, and I just, whether you're using my stuff or not my stuff or whatever, I do not care. But I just love to remind people to cite because it is so important. Okay. So if I helped you in any way, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I know this is a long video, but when you're kind of looking for videos, it's better to have more and less and skip around, or to have kind of a all-encompassing thing. I'll take 30 minutes of a video than struggling to try to ascertain what the H things mean. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, if you want more videos, feel free to comment. It would certainly encourage me to actually do them. I feel like it took me forever just to want to do this one. So anyways, yeah, I hope I helped you. Please let me know if I helped you. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really care about likes or subscriptions. I mean, I only say that because I know it boosts people to be able to, actually find this stuff to help them. But at the end of the day, I just want to know I'm really making a difference, because this was tough for me. So anyways, I hope I helped you, and enjoy, and good luck.